coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, we're in Franklin, Tennessee at EMF. That's K-Love and AIR1, brand new studios. They're under construction, not even ready yet. It's coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone, we got one of those here, to the light bulb at the top of the tower. There's a lot of towers. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host, and today, instead of being in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, I'm in the Telos Alliance studio in Franklin, Tennessee. So it's great to have you with us. And we are at the K-Love studios, K-Love and AIR1. And this is my friend, Shane Tobin. Hi, Shane.
Hey, Kirk.
It's good to see you.
It's good to be back on TWiRT.
Well, thank you. You've been our guest several times.
I have.
In fact, we used to both get a paycheck from the same company.
We did. I spent a couple of years working at the Telos Alliance.
Well, we miss you.
Oh, well, that's so sweet.
But I think the folks at EMF, Educational Media Foundation.
Yeah.
They're glad to have.
At least that's what they tell me.
Nah, not so much.
I hope we trained you right. Now, Shane and I have had a little problem blocking out today's show. I didn't realize how tall Shane is. You are how tall?
6'5".
Oh my God! Stand up. It's okay. It's okay. Oh my God! It seems like everybody I interview is taller than me. Oh, gee. When I've interviewed Charles Kinney down at WSB in Atlanta, how tall is he? He's like 6'8".
He's a tall guy.
6'7".
Yeah, Chuck's a tall guy.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're going to have a good time today. We're going to give you a little bit of a tour here of the this K-Love studio, and I think there's a number of amazing things about it. The fact that it can be rebranded, that's kind of cool. The fact that they're using all audio over IP. Some of the sponsors that we have on the show it's equipment that's in use here at this studio. So we're going to be telling you about that and hearing hearing not only from Shane, but from Shane's colleague, Bill Jackson. Is Bill your colleague, your boss?
He is my colleague. So I actually work for the engineering department on the other side of the house, where we deal with the transmitters and the signal going out to the listeners. It's actually kind of a rare treat now that I'm getting to do some work on the other end of the chain.
Well, you're typically at transmitter sites, right?
Typically, I deal with the transmitter sites. Yeah. So it's been a while since I've been in the studio.
Well, I'd like to hear your impressions when they asked you to come in and be part of this job, because usually you've been in Puerto Rico, you've been all kinds of places at transmitter.
Yeah. So I kind of tend to be one of those guys who just, I go wherever I'm needed and wherever I can, use my use the talents that I have.
So many broadcast engineers are like that. In fact, I saw a repost of something on Facebook today. I believe it was originally written by Richard Seeby. I believe that's who wrote it. I need to be in touch with Richard about all the different things that engineers do in their job description, from animal control specialist to plumber. And it went on and on and on with all the job requirements. And finally it got down to broadcast television engineer.
It was a great post. Yeah.
Oh, you saw it too, then?
I did.
Yeah. We should find that. Hey, This Week in Radio Tech, I want to tell you, is brought to you in part by Ray Topp at Radio Guide magazine. And I realized I read this every 2 months when it comes out. And not only do I read it, but Ray offered to do a nice thing with us here at This Week in Radio Tech. There's an ad here for This Week in Radio Tech, as if you don't need enough reminding to watch the show or even be a part of it. Shane, you write occasionally for these guys.
Cool. Yeah, I do write occasionally for Radio Guide. There's some great tips in there from a number of engineers in the industry.
One thing I notice is that the tech articles in here typically are longer.
They are. Yeah. They go into a little bit more of the deeper tech, the practical side of things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea what you're writing about next?
I don't, but I actually have a couple of. He's asked me to write one coming up, so I owe him an article. I don't know what it's going to be yet, so it'll be a surprise to both of us.
Well, there is a cadre of authors, and I notice on the front panel here is this AM antenna.
Yeah.
The HEBA antenna.
Yeah.
high efficiency broadcast antenna, I think.
Something like that. Yeah. So
our friend Grady Moats, in fact, has been on the show to talk about the HEBA antenna, and Grady's going to be back on here in a few weeks.
I don't do as much with AM as I do with FM, but that's actually a pretty cool concept. So
that brings a question: does K-Love AIR1? It's okay. Can I refer to it as K-Love because that's the brand that's just easy to come up with. But when I say K-Love, I mean K-Love and AIR1 and all your podcasts and all the on-demand shows and things like that. Do you guys have any AM stations?
I believe we're on one right now. Okay. So I lose track. It changes so frequently.
Oh, I got to ask you, I think I know the answer. Maybe I do. What's the most far-flung station that you have?
Why, Kirk, that would be in American Samoa.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell me about that in American Samoa, because that's funny. I have some radio stations in American Samoa too.
Wow, isn't that amazing?
How long has it been since you've been there?
It's been a good couple of years. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How do you get your now? Okay, let's start with in the U.S. You guys distribute to transmitter sites and via what?
Right, satellite for the most part. Some IP, but mostly satellite.
All right. And typically is the satellite receiver and all the equipment at the transmitter site?
Yes, typically it's at the transmitter site.
And so what kind of gear goes at the transmitter site for, I don't know, how do you do EAS, for example?
Each of the sites actually does have an EAS unit at the site. So it's, it's important. I mean, local alerting matters to us. So we do take all of the local assigned monitoring sources and all the appropriate local events that would be transmitted over EAS, and we go ahead and relay those. So.
And your central monitoring location, though, are you made aware of what the EAS messaging is?
So they get reconciled every week. And our NOC is always monitoring the transmitters as well. So we make sure that everything that needs to get out there gets out there.
Now, on the satellite, is that satellite set up? Is that two-way? Is that how you get data back, or how does that work?
At most of the sites, yeah. So there is a two-way link on the satellite. It's a KU VSAT link, but there's also some LTE a number of the sites as well. So,
gotcha. So sometimes that works better.
But it's all very secure and behind more firewalls than I can even
Roughly, how many transmitter sites would that be?
Oh my goodness! Last count, this number of signals was up over 1,000. Site-wise, probably still talking easily in the in the hundreds of sites. So.
One thing I noticed, I recently felt like I had to upgrade my old BMW SUV. It's 16 years old. So, I mean, and it had an old radio in it that didn't work that well. So I bought a Kenwood radio with a navigation system, held my breath, installed it myself, had all the kits and all the cables and all that. And in the end, it really wasn't all that difficult. But what I noticed, and I made sure I got one with HD radio and RDS, by the way, I made the mistake of first ordering an in-dash navigation radio and assumed that it had HD and RDS. The first one I bought had neither.
They don't.
How do you sell a radio these days and not even have RDS? And it's got a color display on it.
So they're relying on the CarPlay and Android Auto features.
Right.
And there are a number of those receivers out there that just rely on those. I saw one that literally didn't even have any radio in it at all.
Wow.
But that's kind of rare. I mean, but they are out there. So, I mean, I've actually been looking for one for my wife's car to upgrade her car because it's got the factory navigation. It does have HD radio, but it's getting a little dated now. So, we're looking at upgrades, and it can be kind of hard to find just the right one that's got all of those features. But
I sure had to pay for it. But what I want to say is that in the Nashville market, I'm punching around, and most of the stations have some RDS. Some is dynamic, some is static. I didn't find any other stations in the Nashville market that had album art, except for K-Love.
So we don't transmit dynamic album art, but we do transmit static logos. I'm hoping to transmit album art at some point.
You're right. I saw the K-Love, and when I saved the K-Love frequency, was it 97.1?
I believe so.
I think when I saved that to a button, the logo appears on the button.
Kind of cool.
Yeah. So instead of saying FM5, it says it's got your logo on it.
So metadata is something that's really, really important, something you try to pay a lot of attention to, whether you're listening analog, HD, whatever, streaming. We try to get that data out there as rich as possible with all of the album art, with all of the title, artist, album information, as much as the medium will allow us to. Obviously, RDS only allows you so much. HD radio allows you a little bit more, including the art. And then streaming, of course, you've got pretty much the whole shebang.
Now, when certainly not all of your sites are HD, just select sites, right? How do you? Well, maybe that's an internal secret, but generally speaking, where would I find K-Love having HD, and where would I not find K-Love having HD?
It really depends. A lot of the major markets will have HD. There are translators that are fed. A lot of times they'll be fed from an HD. We've got 4 different services now, at least, that are over the air. So you've got K-Love AIR1, K-Love 90s, and K-Love 2000s. So a lot of times you'll find those on the HD2 and the HD3 services.
Now, being usually a transmitter guy, are you responsible for a bunch of the HD installation and operation?
So for the HD, I kind of have apparently become one of the subject matter experts in the department for HD. There are 3 of us who are really the subject matter experts on HD in the department. So typically it falls to us to to make sure that the HD stuff. But I'm trying to spread the love as much as possible and continue, educating the whole team about how these systems work.
Well, it's nice to be wanted for your knowledge, but it's also nice to have other options for people to go to.
Well, what makes life a little more interesting is that doing HD for a while. So you've got some of the very first generation systems out there. Most of those have been upgraded now, but now we're on the 4th, almost going into the 5th generation of HD technology. The 4th gen systems have been a lot nicer to maintain and deploy than the 1st gen systems ever were. A lot of you might remember the old deck stars.
Yeah.
So
now, alignment of the analog FM and the HD1 has often been a challenge, especially as we've moved into some IP distribution. But I'm guessing that may not be as much of a challenge for you guys because you deliver the audio to the transmitter side and then you generate the HD, right?
Right, and that helps a lot, being able to keep that whole chain in one spot. But still, it's nice to be able to kind of have a backstop to help keep things in line. So we use the Innovonics Justins, a lot of those sites, to help keep that in line.
What do you find? I mean, now that we've into the 4th generation and coming 5th generation with HD, what are you finding that still is a challenge, and maybe what have you found that just is not a problem anymore?
Oh boy. Well, what's still a challenge is kind of consumer understanding of the technology. And that's been a challenge since day one. But making sure that things are continuously aligned, make sure that your bit rates are appropriate for the content that you're broadcasting. I ran into one of our sites the other day where they were the other station, it just didn't sound right. At some point, it had been set up so that the HD2 and 3 were at like 16 kilobits. I went, whoa, no wonder it sounds bad. So there are a number of things, that you need to check and just make sure that your HD is up to snuff. So there's another product that we use from Innovonics called the Sophia 568. That thing will give you so much information about an HD signal. All the album art, including whether or not you're transmitting things with the right file names and whether or not they're the right size, because it has to meet an exact spec in order for the widest compatibility with receivers. It'll give you all the RDS data, all of that stuff, and it's just a slick little box.
So you deliver audio via satellite, so it's fairly raw, probably lightly processed audio to get that. I mean, just enough to where you're in the range on the codec for the uplink.
It's pretty much a straight program feed.
Okay. So at the transmitter sites, of course, again, a lot of them don't have HD, but some do have HD. What is your thought on processing, and does it change depending on if it's the K-Love format, the AIR1 format, or one of the other HD 2s or 3s?
So first and most important thing is quality. We're not, I'm definitely not shooting to be the loudest thing on the dial.
Well, I tell you, you're not hurting here in Nashville.
I certainly though want to be one of the best sounding things on the dial. I don't want it to be fatiguing. I want it to be easy to listen to for a long period of time. And the box that we've been deploying at a lot of our HDs is actually the Omnia 9.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of nice in the fact that we can run all of the HD chains through that same box.
Oh, the HD 1, 2, and 3.
HD1, HD2, HD3. And have consistent processing on all of them. And it just, the number of feet, the ability to do live wire inputs and AES outputs to the exporter works, or the multicast works great.
Now, I've been to a couple of your sites, and I have seen some Axio live wire gear there. But what wire are you using? How does that help you distribute something?
So it's mostly for routing within the equipment racks.
Oh,
right.
okay.
So
Okay.
a lot of the racks have an analog or a mixed signal node just for monitoring purposes, the analog sites.
Okay.
So, but the HD sites add an AES node to that as well to pass the signal through, and that's also where the EAS gets injected is through that second node.
Okay.
So it's really we use AOIP inside the rack to really
Inside
help
the
with a
rack,
lot
right.
of this routing. Really
Right.
kind of simplifies things.
Okay. But it's still being delivered to the site via satellite, and that's
Correct.
compressed.
And then the satellite receiver outputs an AOIP.
Oh, it does. Really? Like AES67 live wire?
Yeah, AES67 or live wire.
Really? Wow, I had no idea that this. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, so it's pretty much. It's pretty much digital from the moment that it goes into the microphone to the moment that it goes into the transmitter.
One of the things I noticed at your transmitter sites, at least one that I've been in a few times in Mississippi, is you have a scheme for lighting up the back inside of the rack.
Yeah.
And this sounds like Kirk. Why don't we talk about real big tech stuff? I'm telling you, this is a huge benefit, especially to us guys that have some old eyes.
Oh my goodness!
Tell me about lighting. So people light the front of the rack sometimes, or there's a light bulb in the ceiling and everything is shadowed. But if I go around the backside of your rack, I can see absolutely everything in clear detail. What are you doing?
So LED strip is just ridiculously cheap now, right?
Yes.
You can get a white LED strip, on Amazon for just $5-10 or whatever,
Right.
But we wrap the inside of the back of the rack with one of those LED strips, bright white, cool LED strip, and light up the whole back of the rack.
Right.
And the latest thing now is there's actually a motion sensor there. So when you walk behind that rack, it lights up.
Oh, wow.
And all of the equipment you can
just like the freezer section at Kroger, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so you could see inside the back of the rack. It's actually really cool, and I have to give credit to my boss for coming up with that originally. So that was his idea.
If you have, I'll try to find one and put a link in the show notes. But this, I got to tell you, friends, if you learn nothing else on this show, and I'm sure you will, but if you learn nothing else, this is like what some manufacturers do at trade shows. Like they want to light up the inside of the back of the gear, so it gives you that warm, friendly feeling. I know all about it. Do that for yourself. It's not just for trade shows.
It's inexpensive. It will save your eyeballs. It will actually make your life a lot easier at transmitter. Just go on Amazon, get a nice long strip of LED lights, strip it inside the back, around the back of your rack. You won't regret it.
I'm sure they have some that have an audio mic pickup, and you can have it, flash to the beat of your music. If that's what you're into, you can do that. Shane, we're going to come back in a few minutes. You're watching This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. I'm in the K-Love and AIR1 studio, still under construction right now. They're building stuff all around as we talk here in Franklin, Tennessee, on This Week in Radio Tech. Our show is brought to you in part by our friends at Broadcast Tools. They're the makers of this cute little console, the Pro Mix 4. The Pro Mix 4 is a 4-channel mixer with USB, and it's a full-featured because it's a mono audio mixing console. Now, when did you think we'd be advertising a monaural audio mixing console? Here's why. It's perfect for almost any broadcast studio that just has voice going on, or a sports broadcast, or a remote broadcast, or a podcast broadcast where you've just got some people around some microphones. It's got 3 of the combination mic line inputs and a dedicated 4th input that can be switched between balanced line input and the built-in USB audio interface. That's right, it's got a USB audio interface. That lets you easily hook it up to your laptop or your computer. It has 3 1/4-inch stereo headphone outputs. Those are included with individual controls, not just for volume, but for mix and pan, allowing custom headphone mixes for each person. It's got some other features like a switch selectable program limiter. Yeah. So if you got somebody like me who says he shoots, he scores, you can have the program limiter take care of that potential overshoot. It's got an XLR program output. It has a monitor output with muting and volume control. It's got mix minus output for connection to an external telephone hybrid. And it has an on-air light relay output. That's something that's missing from just about everything else there on the market. So it's a great choice for remote broadcasts, for podcasting applications, and it's a great choice for sports. It also has some sports accessories that are available with it as well. And you know where to get it? You know where to get this beautiful little Broadcast Tools Pro Mix 4 that's easy to operate? Yeah, you can send the sports guy out. Probably going to get it right. Get it from Broadcasters General Store. The website, bgs.cc. bgs.cc. And you know what? Here's the phone number. I called them just today. I talked to Brittany Hilton over there at Broadcaster General Store. Call them at 352-622-7700. That's 352-622-7700. Good folks at Broadcaster's General Store. I'm guessing some of this gear in here was ordered from them.
Most likely. Yeah.
What's that?
So Bill brought me one of these handy little motion detectors actually for those LED strips.
Oh, so is this sold separately or come with?
No, this is something you'd have to buy separately.
Okay. What are the connections on it?
This one's actually not for the ones that we use in the back of our racks,
Gotcha.
but it's a similar concept. Right. Yeah.
Okay. So you walk by to get your ice cream and the
whole back of the rack.
Whole back of the rack
lights
up.
I've had some contractors actually who weren't from, had never been to the site before. They walk in and it kind of freaked them out a little bit at first.
Sure. Oh wow! And just like the grocery store, if you leave the door open, does it beep after a while?
It doesn't beep, but eventually it'll shut off. We could.
Well, Shane, now we're at the studios here in Franklin, Tennessee, of K-Love and AIR1, and we're going to talk to Bill Jackson in a little while. Bill's been on the show before when they received the Quasar consoles here, beautiful audio over IP console. Bill's going to be on the show a little bit later on, but Shane, you normally go to transmitter sites, and so how did you get called into this? There's no transmitter right around here. I mean, not in the building.
Well,
anyway.
there are, but it's not. No, not in this facility. This particular facility.
Why'd they call you in here for the studio work?
Bill asked. I said yes.
Okay, well, good.
Start doing this by myself. It's like,
No.
it's not good doing it by yourself.
Well, and
Hey, Shane,
well,
come on down.
and I have the familiarity with the Axia equipment.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah. So I'm gonna have Bill take us through this. But Shane, is this your first experience with this Quasar console?
It is. This is the first time I've actually seen the Quasar consoles, and a number of months back when you were interviewing Bill out here.
Yeah,
that was the first time I actually got to see them as well. I had come out here and got to see them down in the basement dungeon where he was reconfiguring everything. They are really, really impressive looking consoles.
So there's at any studio, there's, as we talked about earlier, the list of things you have to do. There's so many different what I'm looking for disciplines involved in building a studio. I mean, Bill's climbing up on a ladder right now, dealing with a monitor that's hanging down from the ceiling. What have you kind of been responsible for here in the building of these studios?
Mostly the IP side of things, a little bit of the mechanical stuff, getting gear mounted, getting wiring routed.
Well, you're tall; you don't need the ladder to hang stuff from the ceiling.
That's why I had it come.
That was the other reason he had me come. Yeah.
Oh wow! So it's been mostly the IP stuff.
Most of the IP, just some of the physical stuff as well. Bill was talking about that. There's some things I need two guys for. So hanging displays and all.
Now, Bill's going to tell us about the design of the studio, why it is the way it is. I know Bill takes a lot of pride in that, but there are a lot of monitors. Video monitors, and I can't even get them all on the camera. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 monitors, and those are just the ones at eye level for the jock.
Right.
Board operator. Now, on a show like this, is the board operator also part of the show?
Yeah, the board, the jock is usually operating the board.
Yeah, and in this building right here, there is a working studio that's been here for a while, right?
Yeah,
where they're doing a show
that's
there.
where they're doing the K-Love morning show.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll have Bill tell us about the plans for these. So on the transmitter sites, one thing that I noticed, because we share a transmitter site in Mississippi, and you've got a great engineer that has done all kinds of improvements there. I thought that site was really kind of okay to begin with, but you guys came in and said, nope, that's not okay. That's not okay. That's not okay. We're going to fix these things. What are some of the most important things to you as a transmitter engineer to make sure are right? Or maybe, what are some of the typical things that aren't right when you guys come into a site that you feel you need to improve?
So one of the things that we look at first and foremost is the transmitter itself. Is it something that that's going to actually last? It's not going to be a headache and keep taking us off the air on a regular basis. If it's a big enough market, maybe you end up with main and an aux transmitter as well, main and aux sites. The other thing that we look at is physical conditions at sites, things like HVAC, things like dust, air filtering, temperature, all of that stuff.
Do you try to maintain a closed site if you can?
If possible. It's not always possible, but we try to keep environmental conditions at sites
Now,
as best we can.
you've got, excuse me for everyone that thought, but you've got a lot more experience than most folks about mountaintop sites and in more northern climes typically. Is dust a problem there too at mountaintop?
Can be
Really?
summertime, springtime. When
Pollen
pollen. Yeah.
So if you're not gonna be air conditioned actively, if it won't be a closed system, you're
Nice.
blowing air in.
Yes.
You got to filter that.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, ideally, you want to positively pressurize the site. You want to have that air inlet really well filtered. I mean, I've seen a lot of systems where they're just, they may have a fan, but there's either no filtering or it's actually creating a negative pressure inside the building, and it's sucking air, sucking dirt into the building.
Yeah. What about things like what are many of your sites fully owned by you guys, or are you often a tenant on a site? What's a typical setup?
It's a mix.
Okay.
It's a mix. A little bit of each. So.
Okay. What do you try to do with it involving tower lighting, safety issues, monitoring of that kind of thing? What's important to you there?
So we definitely monitor tower lights. That's certainly important. And the knock is first to know about tower light outages. At least that's the idea.
Oh, your own knock monitors that. You don't have a third party monitoring.
No,
Okay.
we monitor that through our knock.
Gotcha. And now, mountaintop sites, are many of those painted towers, or are most of them unpainted?
So again, it varies, but if they're tall enough, they're going to be painted. And if they're, it really just depends on what the requirements were for that site, as far as the license and the registration for that particular site. If it requires it be lit, we light it. If it requires it be painted, it's painted.
There's quite a few sites that you've been to. They're probably hard to get to. Ingress, egress can be challenging. Are there sites you've been to where they told you where it was, but nobody ever went with you to show you the way?
That was pretty much my first whole year.
Oh, really?
As the field engineer. Okay, go out, find the sites.
Oh, man.
I mean, my predecessor knew where they were, and they were actually really well documented in terms of where these sites were. In fact, there's a database. You look it up and see how to get to that site, all the driving directions.
Still, that's got to be well, because a lot of these, I would imagine, these roads to a site aren't necessarily well documented on Google Maps.
So that's one thing I was going to mention. Do not trust Google Maps to get you to a site. It will steer you in so many wrong directions. And things that look like a road might just be a cattle path, or
You ever hire a local Sherpa to help you?
Actually, I have a lot of really good local contract engineers who know where the sites are. So it's always good to connect with them and not only kind of build those relationships, but hey, show me where the site is, and maybe give me some history here.
Now, in your current role at EMF, are you responsible for some sites now? Is that actually your typical thing and not studios?
So most of what I do is actually on the R&D side of things. I look at technology. I'm also there kind of to support the guys in the field. And, if they come in across any really oddball questions, they usually cross my desk.
With all of your work at mountaintop sites and transmitter sites, did you ever, well, maybe this is a secret, but did you ever think, I've got 30% of my sites could use this kind of technology or this technique that they're not doing now? You ever think about, what would wholesale make transmitter sites better? I know we talked about environmental, and it might be nice if there was a more standardized environmental thing that we could do. But, looking over the whole, you have a broad view of a lot of the industry because you've been to so many places. Is there anything that just keeps coming up over and over again that you wish would get solved, or maybe you've kind of figured out a way to solve it?
Well, that last mile connectivity is always going to be the biggest challenge to the sites. I mean, it's satellite for audio, but then, the monitoring connection, VSAT is great, but it has its own limitations. LTE, also great, but, it's still not ubiquitous at every mountaintop site. Working on it. But then you look at things that are coming out like SpaceX and their Starlink system.
Is that interesting to you guys?
It is. No. I find it fascinating, and I can't wait to actually take a look at that and see what its what the possibilities are. But it's going to be a while before you look at being able to get like fiber to every single mountaintop site, let alone two providers at every single mountaintop site. But wireless connectivity can help with that.
Thinking now, here in the Nashville area, we are getting some rain. Didn't have any snow yet, but we had some rain. We got freezing rain in the forecast. Ice is in the forecast. for later, either some tomorrow night and then Monday evening. Are you out of here before Monday?
Thank you for that weather forecast, Kurt.
I'm thinking it's going to be nasty. It's like, hey, North, you left your weather in our backyard. Come down and get it.
Actually, I fly back on Saturday, so I'm hoping to miss it before.
I think it'll be all right. Tomorrow's going to be beautifully sunny, cold, but sunny and clear. But here's the question. You do a lot of distribution by satellite. And I remember satellite dishes getting filled up with ice and snow and changing the focal point and not being very good antennas anymore. What do you do with sites that are subject to getting snow in the dish?
So there are a couple of options. You do a C and a KU band, a kind of main alternate type of arrangement.
Okay.
I know with C band there are some other challenges there that are being presented, but another topic entirely. Or you could do like a KU backed up with streaming, for instance. So if something were to happen to the satellite signal, it could fail over to the streaming.
Can you predict which sites are going to need this kind of backup beforehand, or do you just have to have some experience? You know what? We went off the air twice in the last 2 years at this mountaintop side of the mountain.
Yeah, it's just kind of feeling it out by experience for the most part. But I mean, you can get a sense for what the typical conditions are at sites. Again, back to the, talk to the local contract engineer. If they say, hey, man, you're not going to be able to put a 1.8 meter dish there, it's going to blow away and turn into a sail. Or you're going to need more ballast, or you're going to need to really stiffen that mount. Best to heed that advice.
We're going to go to commercial pretty soon, but I've asked you a lot of stuff. But is there anything I haven't asked that you wanted to say or to tell our audience today?
Well, we've covered quite a bit.
We covered a lot of ground. Yeah. Obviously, you're really happy with what you're doing.
I love it. And I still, I get up, I go to work, and I never know what the day is going to bring, and that's exciting.
Most broadcast engineers, and obviously you included, if you are at a transmitter site doing something meaningful, if you're building a studio doing something meaningful, you're happy as a pig in slop. I mean, you're just really good.
Absolutely. I mean, they give me fun toys to play with, and they pay me.
That's awesome. Shane Toven has been our guest on the first part of the show. I'm Kirk Harnack. We are in Franklin, Tennessee, at some new studios being built for the K-Love and AIR1 family of stations, Educational Media Foundation. This studio, is it going to be a morning show, or do you happen to know what this one's going to be?
Not quite sure yet.
Okay.
I think it's going to have probably multiple.
Gotcha. Oh, yeah. Okay. That's right. Cool. All right. Good deal. You're watching This Week in Radio Tech, and we're going to be right back after this from Broadcast Bionics.
Hi, I'm Phil from Broadcast Bionics in the UK, and we've been helping broadcasters and podcasters to work remotely for some time. But in 2020, this has become more of a necessity for many. X-Screen, Bionic Studio and our other products can be fully functional via the internet on a VPN connection or RDP session. If you have any type of Telos VX, HX6 or IQ6, you may already be using the free edition of X-Screen 2, giving you a software interface to go alongside your VSET controller. The subscription edition not only adds a cloud database and unrestricted workstation licenses, but also allows the user to call screen using a USB headset. Bionic Talk Show, part of the Bionic Studio, also allows this. Up until now, it's mainly been used for remote broadcasts, but now more and more stations have call screeners and producers working from home or socially distanced offices. The teams can still collaborate, communicate, and deliver programming with the help of our tools. Many routers will have a VPN option. Your local IT specialist can help with this. Using a VPN, our workstation client software can be run on a home PC or laptop, as if it was running on a machine at the studio. With Remote Desktop, the software still runs on a PC at the station. Simple port forwarding on your router may be all that's required to then control that PC and deliver the headset audio from another device using RDP, which is available as part of Windows. For technical help, our support team are on hand. You can email them on support@bionics.co.uk. Combined with our Anywhere and Skype TX for radio products, broadcast quality audio can be delivered from contributors around the corner or around the globe. They can even instant message with the shared chat windows and see the now playing information from within the Anywhere remote web interface. For more information, go to bionic.radio. We're helping broadcasters around the world to adapt to the new normal with innovative tools from Broadcast Bionics.
Good folks, thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech.
You said innovative.
Innovative, he did.
Innovative.
They talk funny over there.
Innovatively.
And Ruta. Did you hear that?
Yes, Ruta. It's a
Ruta.
Ruta.
First time.
I love Phil.
Phil's
It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. He's awesome. First time I heard that, I think I was in Australia, and somebody said Ruta. What? No, no, no. In Australia, I think they say router, but in England, they definitely say Ruta.
Okay.
But yeah, whatever.
I'll go with it.
Envelope.
Sorry, I interrupted your dialogue there.
Tomato. No, we're good. Hey, this is my friend Bill Jackson. Bill does regional, nationwide?
They gave me a
Worldwide
title. They
director
gave me a
of-
new title, Principal Studio Engineer.
Principal.
Principal.
I usually got along with the principal okay, except for a couple times.
Mm-hmm. I'll buy that for $1.
So you've built a few studios, huh? Indianapolis was a big thing for you?
Redid 5 studios in Indianapolis.
Mhm.
Built 2 here. Did doing 2 more. Tore down 1 to make room for 2. And have video editing workstations and stuff. So it's all followed. It's just about delivering content.
It's about delivering the tools to the people who do
Correct.
the content. Yeah.
Correct.
So in this studio, or these studios that you're building, what are some of the things that were important to you in terms of design factors? I mean, we got beautiful lights. I like the colors. Speakers are well placed. 6 monitors, really? Wow.
Yeah, so there's a perfectly good reason for it. When you have a host and that host is sitting in, they need access to the most important things. And the 2 monitors, if you want to show the 2 monitors here,
I'm gonna turn the camera
are what
back
we
here.
use for our automation system. So we can see logs and hotkey data. And while they're looking at that, it's a casual glance left or right to co-hosts, if there are any on the shows.
Okay.
So this is our primary focus. To the left, we have Vox Pro for phone. And the Vox Pro for phone is doing 2 things. Number 1, it's the call editing when they record it and edit it. There's also call screening going on from certain producers outside. And not only does the host need to see that, but so does talents. So some of these monitors are individually DA'd, if you will,
Duplicated
to above monitors, which you can't see
There.
on camera.
Yeah.
That's the purpose behind these 2, is so we see everybody has access to the content. It's about information and how you get access to the information, how that they're able to see that information.
You know, it's possible that our producer Suncast is going to kill me, but I'm gonna turn the camera around and watch as I move. There's
One
one.
there,
There's one of the
yep.
big monitors up there, and the one that you were pointing to is that big honking monitor right up
Yep.
there.
So if you want, I'll show you and it'll make sense. I'm going to
Okay.
go to host. Now, at the monitor you were just pointing at, this co-host is able to see call screen.
Yeah.
It's in their line of sight.
Perfect. Nice. Wow. So you've also got a design in this studio, and it's a little hard to see, but there's a bit of a well between this side of the console and that side of the console where the other talent is. Tell me about that space there, and I've seen that in more studios.
So the well is to have devices, particularly 2 power supplies that people can plug in their laptop. They can plug in their cell phone, and it's not the same power feed as stuff that's powering critical gear.
And it looks like it's keeping the cables managed a bit too, because
Correct.
these plugins and stuff are just kind of down in there, and they're not in front of you.
Exactly.
Okay. This furniture, now this is pretty interesting. Is this from one of the usual furniture companies, or is this custom designed and built?
It's custom designed. It's built by PRNE, their custom furniture thing.
Yeah.
That's who developed. It's our design.
Okay.
It's a modification of the design that we have in Indianapolis and Rockland. And there, one leg of the furniture butts up against the wall. This furniture floats in the room.
Okay.
Because I find that more efficient than the way we've done it.
Yeah.
So, that was it. And
So are you bringing cables up onto the floor then?
sure am.
Okay, and they go over to your tech center.
Correct.
Okay. What are some of the techniques you found for connecting the studios with the tech center in terms of the number of cables that you need? I mean, obviously you're not doing this all on one Cat 5 cable. You got a number of things.
There are 24 Cat 6A shielded cables running between here and
Wow.
there. 7 of those are live wire based.
Mhm.
4 of those are KVM based.
Uh-huh.
A couple more are for other things.
Okay.
There will eventually be some other type of cable that are going in this room in order to do some new types of content. That will come in a few months.
Yeah. Gotcha. So this room, and I don't want to step on any plans, but obviously it's set up for radio, set up for people looking at each other, talking, maybe playing music and making content.
Correct.
That content may be delivered not only on the radio, but other ways too.
Yeah, this is a content creation room.
Yeah.
And that content creation room happens to work for different brands.
Mhm.
So this studio is designed not just to be K-Love, not just to be AIR1,
Oh,
not just to be K-Love 2000s, not just to be K-Love 90s or K-Love Christmas or AIR1 Christmas. It can also be able to do anything and pick up soon any source from anywhere at any site that we have.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's a bigger plan than just trying to, okay, I'm building a studio for K-Love and I'm building a studio for AIR1. That's not what this is.
Well, I was going to ask you. We're in Franklin, Tennessee. Beautiful town, lovely place. A lot of music artists live here.
Mhm.
So when you want to do an interview, there's a great number of them that are not far away.
They go next door and get coffee at the Frothy Monkey.
There you go, the Frothy Monkey. Listen to that. And you've even got a recording studio set up here.
Yeah. We do.
And even a kind of a world-class mixing console for there and
It's
mastering.
an Avid S6.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets the job done.
Phil's still here.
Phil's still here.
Got some Grammy awards.
He's
Something
got
like that?
2 of them on his show. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right.
He's
So,
good people.
so there's some expertise here. But obviously you don't need that kind of mixing console to do radio. Can you tell me a little bit about the mixing console? And even though I work for the company, I don't get to see this console that often. Well, a lot of it's because of COVID distancing. And by the way, we're all checked out. We're all negative.
We're all
so
good.
It's okay. We're all good. What can you tell me about this console?
So we were looking at, and I think I mentioned this in the video when we did it in June, July, whatever that was.
Probably
the last one.
I assume I didn't see it.
We were we try and build standards. Think of it as a McDonald's.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it's a McDonald's for the talent.
Oh.
So not only the consumer, but also the talent.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So from when Shane was saying we try and make the right signal, we're trying to make McDonald's so that whether you listen to a K-Love signal in Nashville or a K-Love signal in Rockland or a K-Love signal in Denver or wherever, when you punch up K-Love, it sounds like K-Love.
Okay. Anywhere you go.
It has a sound.
You buy a Big Mac in Rockland, or you buy a Big Mac.
2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. You get that wherever you go.
Yourself,
so the same thing goes for the internal customer as it does for the external customer.
Right.
Okay?
Internal customer being the talent.
The talent that are on the air or the
Okay.
people that are going to use these tools. We want it to be such for them that there is a standard. They know where the button is. They know what the button does.
Right.
And they feel comfortable. This is a little bit of a departure because our headquarters and Indianapolis facilities don't have this. This is new. But there are reasons I don't care to discuss that's going to force us to move forward in technology.
Okay.
And so that's what we're doing. We're creating the new standard with this. And so as we move forward, when we build a studio for these type of purposes, this is what we will build it on.
Mhm.
And this is the way it will be laid out. And everybody will know how to use it. You can fly across the country and walk in and do your show and you feel perfectly comfortable. So that that internal customer is still getting a Big Mac.
During COVID, have you had some of your talent operating out of homes, or
All of them did for a while. Yeah.
Oh, they did.
Mhm.
Okay. Wow. And would they be connected into a studio like this with somebody in here, or would they? How would that work? Who would be mixing this kind of operation?
We did some. It was funny when COVID came. We actually used Rodecaster Pros at
Sure.
people's houses.
A lot of people are.
And those came from a separate project I was working on for our regional public affairs managers.
Yeah.
Regional public affairs managers have little regions that they go through and they talk to city councilmen and nonprofits and they aggregate the content in order for us to serve our local market, right?
Yeah.
We don't have a person that works there in every city. So we use these regional folks in order to acquire that content and get localized messaging out when it's time for us to air that particular type of content. I was working on a project to revamp the way they did when the bucket decided to spill over with COVID, and we took those parts and used it, and we used some other type of technologies in order to get audio into play out, let's say. So they're all off the shelf tools, and I just put the right combination together for us to be able to do it, and it works. It's not as elegant as I like, and if I had 30 days to figure it out, I would have done it completely differently, but it and we're actually going to test that later this year. We're going to figure a new remote broadcast protocol.
Gotcha. Since EMF and a number of broadcasters are nationwide. They have a headquarters here. They have a big office here and here and here. And without going into the details on the connectivity, what can you guys bring up on this console? What can you bring up at your other places?
Right now, I can tell you that we're linked via codec. We're linked via iPort. So any side, two iPorts, as a matter of fact. One is primary and one is redundant. Whatever source that I feed into the iPort in Rockland and bring in as a live wire source here, I can do. Long term, and within the next couple of months, with some technology hurdles that we're going to surmount here soon, we're going to link this site via fiber to that. And then any standard stream source, because in LiveWire you have a live stream and a standard stream.
Right.
Same quality of audio, but it's about packet size. Any standard stream source will be available at either site. So it's just like you're down the hall, even though you're 2,200 miles away.
Right now, can you bring up an automation system or something, some audio that's coming from elsewhere?
Not yet.
Okay,
That's coming.
That's coming. Okay,
That's coming.
Okay.
I don't have anything sent in the iPort yet. When the link and the PIM routing is all done and PTP clocking is all done. Anything that is labeled that is a LiveWire standard stream inside of that will be available and seen inside of assigning a source as a destination.
You just mentioned something that I think, from a technology point of view, is worth covering just a little bit more, because I answered this question in my role with Telos Alliance, and that is, when you have two remote sites connected by codecs, these two sites do not have to be talking to the same clock. They don't have to be referencing the same clock. The codecs kind of make up for that. They're good at little slippy slidey, getting audio that's consistently reliable. And different codec manufacturers have different tricks to make that work over a short time or even over a long time. So even if they're on different clocks, it's okay. But when you connect two sites together over something like AES 67 or LiveWire or Ravenna or whatever, the two clocks have to be, I think the right word is disciplined. They have to be disciplined to some master clock, which, because it's convenient, is a GPS satellite.
Right.
And the GPS satellite disciplines a master clock at each location, like a PTP grandmaster.
Right.
And then you can be assured that those grandmasters are synchronized, right?
Within the nanosecond.
And but PTP clock becomes important. And, and so what can you tell us? I know I explained a good part of it, but what can you tell us additionally to what I said about when you connect sites together, not through codec?
Okay, so this is going to be way below anybody that's watching this level, but we're sampling audio at 2448. Okay, 48,000 times a second.
Yep.
If you aren't clocked to GPS, then, or some sort of timing source, then you're arbitrary clock.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay? And if you have two sites that are arbitrary clock, the length of the second is not the same.
Exactly. Yeah. And over time they can be.
And over time they get off.
Yeah.
And so you'll get popping, clicking, cutout, and all that, because I'm not sampling the same 48,000 times within that same second. My samples may be larger or shorter by.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's why the clock source is important, that it's referenced, so that we're using GPS because it's convenient, but the protocol we're using, PTP, is saying, here's how long a second is. You're getting the same second. So you guys sample that 24-bit word 48,000 times within this second. Now, when I'm pushing that, they're the same.
You mentioned this word arbitrary, and I think it deserves a little bit of explanation, because I've had to learn about this myself. If you have just a standalone studio or a group of studios in the same building, for example, and you want to implement AES 67, you need PTP clock. You have to have PTP clock for AES 67. LiveWire has its own clock, which is amazingly similar to PTP clock, but it's not exactly the same thing. And the other AOIP solutions have their own clock as well. But if you're going to do AES 67, you need clock, PTP clock, but it's okay if it's an arbitrary clock. In other words, it doesn't have to be slaved or referenced to or disciplined by GPS. It's accurate enough. If you're just keeping the audio there, then you can use arbitrary
within
clock.
The facility. Yes, and the PTP. The fact that it is PTP, it is that precision time protocol.
Right.
Whether it's referenced to something or not doesn't matter. because AES67 is clocking to that PTP.
Right.
And so you have a node, an X node, an Axia X node, a Telos Alliance X node, can generate PTP.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have a PTP source, but it's arbitrary PTP,
That's right.
not referenced to GPS. So we have a clock, a GPS reference clock within on the building. It says, hey, here's how long a second is. And now I have two nodes. I have a node that is my primary master, slaved to PTP, and I have a Livewire secondary master that's slaved to PTP. If I lose one, we then have the secondary master take over again. So we never lose clocking here.
So on the same network, and I think you kind of alluded to this, on the same network, you can have, let's take the simple example. You can have arbitrary PTP and you can have Livewire on the same network, two clocks coming from probably the same X node.
Right.
You can also have a PTP Grand Master clock, which is disciplined by a GPS. And then you can have, let's say, an X node, an Axia X node on the system that says, there's some devices here that need Livewire clock.
Correct.
So I'm going to discipline myself, the Livewire clock, to the PTP Grand Master clock that's on the network too.
A node is, yes.
Yes.
So all of the nodes, all of the Livewire devices on the network want Livewire clock.
If they're Livewire only.
If they're Livewire only, right. Yeah. All of our AES67 drivers are set to Livewire, not to PTP. You can reference them to PTP2.
Either one,
right? So Livewire clock needs to be there. But we want that Livewire clock associated with something referenced to GPS.
Right.
So this node, these time nodes, the nodes that are issuing Livewire clock are then slaving to PTP. So the PTP packets are going out. These two nodes are listening to it saying, oh, I need to adjust by however many microseconds to make sure we're good to go. And they do. And then they reissue time to the Livewire network.
Right.
That's how it.
Right. Okay, good. I've explained this in theory to people, and you're doing it in practice. So that's cool.
I got lucky.
We're going to take
I just plug in microphones for a living. I just plugged this one in today.
We're talking with Bill Jackson here at the EMF Studios, K-Love AIR1 in Franklin, Tennessee. I'm Kirk Harnack, This Week in Radio Tech. And Bill, would it be okay to put the camera here and look at a couple things under here? Is there anything secret under there?
There's nothing secret under there. It's just dirty right now.
Well, but it's under construction. I want to
go ahead.
Don't you have some? Well, here, it's time we talked about my friends at Angry. I think you've got a couple of Angry Audio things here.
Couple.
Okay. We don't have to show the new super secret device if you don't want to.
It's not super secret.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
No, it's released. It's going to be released.
Well,
he's got people buying it.
Would you mind closing the lid on your laptop over there?
Yeah.
And I want to show that box right there. What are we looking at there?
That's the Bluetooth audio gadget.
What does it do?
Any Bluetooth device I can hook up to it and have a source into my Axia console. So a cell phone, I can do a cell phone call via Bluetooth on that.
And as far as we know, viruses and malware don't jump Bluetooth. So this is safe from a corporate IT.
It has no IP or otherwise connection.
Oh yeah, it's analog or AES out.
AES. Yep.
Okay.
It's not a live wire device.
So you can safely have somebody bring a phone in here.
Correct.
What can a laptop connect to it?
Laptop has Bluetooth. Yeah, that one is.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's even better for safety.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Now we don't hook laptop to it.
Yeah.
We have a separate. If you look there on the right, there is a Thunderbolt 3 connection going to a dock that's in the furniture.
Okay.
It's going to actually allow that.
Gotcha.
Because then you'd have to have another cord to do power.
Yeah.
Well, not just bring the video to the monitors.
Gotcha.
I can bring that audio out of the dock. So makes better sense.
Now, just having to, we're going to look at some other Angry Audio stuff in a second. I'll tell you what, let's go ahead and look at that now if I can untangle my camera cord here. Under here, I want to see about, the headphone amplifier, which is up over there. Oh, let's see. It's really hard to see. You don't have quite enough light. That's right. Oh, there's a light down there. Any chance you want to? I'll pan somewhere else for a second, and you can show us that device. Let me get a beat on it. There it is. What is that thing?
That's the headphone gizmo.
The headphone gizmo.
Headphone gizmo.
And it's smooth and sexy.
What did you say earlier, guys?
Well, there's no pantyhose that's gotten hung up on it.
Exactly. It sounds really good too.
Is it loud enough?
Really good. It's loud enough.
Okay.
It sounds good. Some of the other ones out there have a very high noise threshold.
Oh yeah.
It's nice and silent. I don't call it completely silent, but it's out of other stuff I've heard, really good. And he's actually improved it since this version.
So we're talking about Angry Audio here, one of our sponsors. The website is angryaudio.com. So you've got the Bluetooth gadget, the headphone gizmo, and then you probably used some of the Studio Hub adapters to wire the place up. Dongle. Yeah, I'm going to try to untangle this cord a bit more. Sorry, Suncast. I know this is bad production values. I apologize.
Do you want to see the new thing?
The new thing?
Yeah, the new thing you made.
Is it way down there?
It's way down.
Well, I got to get this again. Let's see. Hang on.
Get it.
Okay. All right.
Let's explain the genesis.
All right.
When you build a studio, normally you will mount in the case of these Mika arms, you'll mount a 5-pin deal inside of your furniture. And you'll bring the wiring out of that.
Now, the 5-pin, that's unfamiliar. That's unfamiliar to some people. Why not a 3-pin? Because
the Mika arms have a light.
Oh, show us that. Woo!
Okay, so it's 2 pins for power.
Okay.
And depending on how you wire them, this is either red or white.
All right.
Okay. So it takes 12 plus volts DC in order to run this.
Okay.
So the 5-pin XLR is to provide that, and then you've got the balanced audio on the other for your microphone. All right. So normally you would put that 5-pin XLR in your furniture. Right. Okay. Female one in the furniture, plug it in. That's the old way of doing it. Okay. Got to give credit where credit is due. We were having a conversation about 1.5 years ago. Corey Reynolds, who works on our studio engineering. We had a meeting and I said, okay, what could we do better, cheaper, faster, easier? And I was saying, I hate the way that we have to run this audio, break it out, and then run the power to a 66 block, and then hook a GPIO node up to the 66 block and apply power to it in order to get this power distributed off this little 24-volt power supply in order to turn these things on. What could we do that makes this better, simpler?
And not there's anything wrong with what you just described. It's how engineers would do that.
Yeah.
But could it be neater and cleaner?
Could be neater, faster, easier, cheaper, better. Okay. Right? So I said, Corey, why don't you find a way that we could do this better? And we put our heads together, and then I stumbled across Catfish's site over at Angry Audio, and he had the mic gizmo. And I showed it to Corey, and he's like, oh, that's cool, because you could plug that in with a wall wart, and then plug your 5-pin directly into that, mount that whole thing in your furniture, and then have an XLR cable that ran to your node. Okay. And then it's a 3.5 millimeter that plugs in, that it's applying power, and you hook that to power, and you're good to go. There's your mic. And I went, yeah, that's kind of cool. What do you think about that? And Corey said, man, it'd be nice if we could get like 4 or 8 of these all in one box. I'm like, okay. And I'm a traditionalist and used to mounting things in the furniture. And he goes, well, we don't have to mount it in the furniture. We're drilling holes in the furniture already in order to run all these monitor cables in. Let's just run the mic cable in that same hole and hook to this device downstream. And it wasn't registering when he did it. But then I said, okay, draw me the device. And he drew it. And I went, oh, I get it. Because I'm hung up on, well, you got to mount something in the furniture for it. He's like, no, let's just use the hole that we're already cutting, because there's DVI cable or HDMI cable and power that's already going through it. Right? So it's a less hole we have to drill. And so I went and met with Catfish, and he and I exchanged a couple of emails and text messages, and he ended up developing what is the headphone gadget. You have the headphone the mic gizmo, but now you have the mic gadget. So it's the single device that he has, but there's now 4 into it, and it controls the mic thing.
Grab your light if you don't care, and we'll light it up a little bit. So this is the debut of this device.
All right,
and that's about as close as I can physically get to it.
You can set your mic to white, you can set your mic to red, or you can leave it in auto mode. Set the color, yes.
Okay.
Look up there.
Oh yeah, I'm not going to move the camera that fast, but yeah, it's red or white.
And it set it. And so all I do is I have the 5-pin come into these two.
Uh-huh.
It's 4 mics here and 4 mics here. I have 5 in the studio.
So there's no breakout. How many 66 blocks do you have in here?
None.
None?
No.
0?
None. No Chrome blocks.
No Chrome blocks.
Only thing I've got is that patch bay.
Uh-huh. Which you would have anyway to properly do your
exactly.
RJ45s.
Everything goes in there now.
Wow.
Simple.
So, and now this mic device here from Angry Audio, that's got 8? It's
2 devices.
2 4s.
And he has a rack plate. So
Okay.
I have the first 4 mics coming in here and the 5th mic coming in here.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome. Wow. This has been a very long commercial for Angry Audio.
You're welcome. You're welcome, Catfish. I invited you.
But we're also explaining some technology. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here and hear from our friends at Max Connect Wireless. We're going to be right back with a final word here from the K-Love AIR1 studios in Franklin, Tennessee. We'll be right back.
I'm Gary Morrow, Midwest Regional Director of Engineering for Alpha Media. When I first spoke with Josh Bone about Max Connect, he told me they'd work great for remote transmitter sites where connectivity was a challenge. And he's absolutely right. We even have sites where we're using this as a backup to our STL using Max Connect's dual carrier option, and it works perfectly. We also have times where we need to be able to get out to a venue where it's kind of challenging because everybody and his brother is trying to stream video at the same time, like at a big sporting event. And you know what? Our data gets through every time because it's prioritized packet data. It works for us. It'll work for you. Max Connect. Check it out.
Thanks a lot to Josh Bone at Max Connect Wireless for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. And luckily, we got a great connection right here at EMF. But you know what? If we didn't, I'd bring the Max Connect. In fact, I brought the Max Connect in case we needed it. And there it is, Max Connect Wireless. I know it's spelled funny because, internet. You look them up and check it out. They'll work with you to pick out the best carrier, the best wireless carrier for you in your area. And it also works in Canada, and they're working on other countries around the world too. So check them out. It's good data. And it works fine, and you get a fixed IP address, just like Gary said. We're gonna have to go pretty soon. This has been great.
I'm glad you came.
Me too. Me too.
What else you want to
Well, if you got dinner plans, we'll talk about that. But
not with you. No.
not with me. Let's see. I don't know I'm springing this on you, but we always try to end with a tip. What have you learned? What do you like? And you've given us several already. Shane gave us the lighting in the back of the rack. You gave us that mic gadget right there, and some other ideas. Let's imagine. I'll tell you what. EMF, Educational Media Foundation, is a company that really seems to be continually expanding and working on making great content and getting that content out to people. If someone is interested in engineering and they think, you know what, EMF might be a great place to work. What do I need? What skills do I need? What would a younger person need to do to improve their skills so they could give somebody like you or one of your colleagues a call and say, hey, I think I could help you guys out? What sort of skill set does a person need to have to make that call?
First thing you need to do is learn how to use a web browser. And you need to go to klove.com and check out the job opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Because
all right.
there might be something available right now.
Okay, that you
as of this recording, as of this broadcast. So I would encourage you to do that, number one. But number two, read incessantly. Collaborate as much as you can. Typically, engineers are good about doing that in a pinch. But I find the most valuable knowledge I gain comes when I'm collaborating with other folks, when it's not in. We talk about different ways of doing things and how they can be better, faster, cheaper, efficient.
You don't learn this stuff in a bubble. You learn it with other people.
Yeah, I hate being an information broker, and I just, if I can avoid it, I avoid being around information brokers. I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I like to be surrounded by the smartest guys in the room.
Well, your own background it is not a technical one. It was an operations, on air, promotions.
Yeah, I was a talent.
Yeah.
And I did promotions and marketing.
Yeah.
I ran the boards for Lewis Miller's Lawn and Garden Show in Louisiana and LSU Sports, and then grew to be a talent, and then grew to do operations for LSU Sports, broadcast stuff, and that dovetailed into doing promotion and marketing for Educational Media Foundation, and there was a need, and I had a technical background for stuff in Indianapolis, and then I ended up doing the stuff for the region, for outside of California, essentially the region. But if you have aptitude, and that's the important thing. Do you have the aptitude? Then if you have the right motivation, you can be
So
successful.
aptitude would mean the ability to pick up on
Correct.
things in the field that you want to go
Correct.
into.
Do you have the ability to learn the stuff you
Yeah.
need to do? And if you do, then you can do it, as long as you're shown. As long as someone isn't an information broker and tries to keep, how we started this car, how we got that car running.
Yeah.
They showed you how to put the spark plugs in and how to hook the wires up to the spark plugs,
Yeah.
and you can absorb that, and you can do that to pretty much any gas-powered car, right?
Yeah.
So, gas, not diesel, electric. But that's the thing. If you communicate and you bounce ideas around, and I do it all the time with people I've worked with, with others. Hey, what do you think about this? Hey, Bill, I need an outside-of-the-box idea on this. Okay, what about this? That baby's ugly. Okay, well, what about this? Oh, that I like.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to have someone tell you that your baby's ugly.
Yeah.
Okay, get your ego out of it.
Yeah.
Because there are things that I've done many a time in studio builds. This is like my, number 53 or something like that. It's just.
You said something that makes me think technology and solutions don't care about your ego.
And they don't. Yeah. And as a host says, facts don't care about your feelings.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
So collaborate.
Yeah.
I learn so much by collaborating.
I think there was some artist who had a song about collaborate and listen.
Yeah, we got to stop and then do that.
That's right. Hey, we got to go. Bill, it's been great dealing with you and being with you here.
Dealing with me.
Yes. I had to convince him to do the show, I want to say thanks to Shane. Thanks, Shane. Thanks to Shane Tovin for also being on This Week in Radio Tech. We got some great shows coming up here in the next few weeks, so I want you to stay tuned for those.
Those good ones will not include me or Shane.
That's not true. The best ones do. Oh, man. Shane, he's going to get some awards.
Hey, Shane, come say bye. He's in a meeting.
One of the things that you can do as a listener or a viewer of This Week in Radio Tech is patronize our advertisers. I really appreciate that. And if you get a chance to let them know, hey, heard about you on This Week in Radio Tech, or hey, Kirk reminded me that probably should give you guys a call or buy your stuff or include you in our next plans for our next studio, that would be great. It really helps us out. If you're watching this on YouTube, would you please subscribe to the channel and give us a like? That always helps out, helps the algorithm. And it's really special. If we have all those subscribers, then you get the show. You get notified by the show automatically. Hey, a big thanks to Suncast, our producer for this show. Suncast, really appreciate you and the work that you do. Thanks also to Andrew Zarian, the founder of this network, GFU Guys from Queens. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech.